I found a hidden camera in the bathroom at my friend's house by accident, and if I had walked past the mirror 1 second later, I might never have known it was watching me. I was staying at my friend's house for the weekend. Nothing unusual about that. We've known each other since university, and I've slept over dozens of times. The place was familiar down to the weird hum the fridge made at night and the loose tile in the hallway. That clicked if you stepped on it wrong. That's why it took me a while to notice anything was off. The first night was normal. We ordered takeout, watched a movie, complained about work, and crashed late. I slept in the guest room, same one I always used. When I woke up the next morning, I felt oddly exposed, like I'd forgotten to close the curtains or left the door open. Everything looked normal, though. Bed made, doors shut, blinds half drawn. I brushed it off as leftover anxiety from a stressful week. The weird feeling didn't go away. Throughout the day, I kept getting this sensation that I was being observed, not in a paranoid way, more like a physical awareness, like when you can tell someone's staring at you in public before you look up. I checked my phone more than usual, caught myself glancing at corners of rooms, mirrors, dark screens. My friend didn't act strange. If anything, they were relaxed, joking, completely normal. That night, I went to shower before bed. The bathroom attached to the guest room was small, barely enough space to turn around without knocking your elbow into something. As I stepped out of the shower, towel around me, I noticed the mirror looked wrong. Not dirty, not cracked, just slightly tilted, like it wasn't sitting flush against the wall. I reached out to adjust it, assuming it had been bumped. My fingers brushed the edge, and the mirror shifted too easily. Behind it was a small black device mounted to the wall. At first, my brain refused to register what I was seeing. It was about the size of a matchbox, with a tiny lens in the center, and a pinhole light that wasn't on, but could be. It took a few seconds for the shape to make sense, for the implication to land. When it did, my stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I stepped back, heart pounding, towel slipping. The device was angled perfectly toward the shower and sink, perfectly. I covered the lens with my hand, like that might undo whatever it had already seen. My skin felt cold, prickly. I stood there listening, half expecting someone to be on the other side of the door, breathing, waiting. Nothing. Just the house settling, pipes ticking. I pulled the camera off the wall. It came away easily, held in place by adhesive strips. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. There was a tiny slot for a memory card on the side. I wrapped myself in my clothes as fast as I could and walked straight into the living room, camera clenched in my fist. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why is there a camera in the guest bathroom?" My friend looked up from their phone, confused. "What?" I held it out. This was behind the mirror. Pointed at the shower. They stared at it, frowning, then laughed softly. "That's not mine. Why would I put a camera there?" The laugh didn't reach their eyes. I waited for them to say something else. A joke. An explanation. Anything. Instead, they just looked unsettled. Not guilty exactly. More like surprised. "I've never seen that before," they said. "Are you serious?" "Yes," I said. "I just pulled it off the wall." They stood up and took it from me, turning it over in their hands. "This is creepy," they said. "Maybe the previous tenant left it?" I stared at them. "You've lived here for 3 years. They paused just for a second, then shrugged. "Yeah, but that bathroom was renovated before I moved in. Maybe it got missed?" The explanation sounded thin even to me, and I wanted desperately to accept it. I wanted this to be some oversight, some harmless mistake with a logical answer. But the camera wasn't dusty. The adhesive was clean, recently placed. "Does it work?" I asked. They hesitated, then shook their head. "I don't know. There's no card in it." I reached for it again, hands trembling. The slot was empty, yes, but that didn't mean anything. It could stream. It could upload. The idea made my chest tighten. "I don't feel comfortable staying here," I said. They immediately nodded. "Of course. Totally understandable. You can leave if you want." The speed of the response bothered me more than resistance would have. No argument, no offense taken, just acceptance. I packed my bag in silence. Every room felt different now. Smaller. Watching. I kept imagining lenses hidden in smoke detectors, vents, corners. I checked the guest room mirror, too. Nothing there. That didn't help. As I was leaving, I glanced back at the bathroom door. The mirror hung crooked now, empty space behind it. I felt like something had been ripped open that couldn't be closed again. "Are you going to call the police?" I asked, hand on the doorknob. My friend shrugged. "About what? A random device we don't even know works?" I looked at him. Really looked this time. "You swear it's not yours?" They met my eyes. "I swear." I left anyway. That night, in my own apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment I touched the mirror, the ease with which it moved, like it had been adjusted recently. I kept thinking about how normal my friend had seemed. How calm. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. A new device had logged into my cloud account. The location matched my friend's address, and the device name was Camera 3. I stared at the notification until my eyes burned, rereading it over and over like the words might rearrange themselves into something harmless. A new device had logged into my cloud account. Location, my friend's address. Device name, camera 3. The number was what made my throat close. Not camera, not guest camera, camera 3. That meant there were at least 2 others. I locked my phone and set it face down like that could stop anything else from appearing. My apartment felt too quiet. I got up and checked every corner, every shelf, every mirror, even though I knew it was pointless. The camera wasn't here. It had never been here. It had been watching me somewhere I thought was safe. I changed my cloud password immediately, then my email, then everything else I could think of. Each confirmation screen felt hollow, like locking a door after someone had already memorized the layout of your house. When I finished, I sat on my bed fully dressed, lights on, waiting for something else to happen. It did. Another notification came through. Device disconnected. Then, less than a minute later, new device attempting to log in. Same location, same address. I didn't sleep at all. By morning, my nerve felt scraped raw. I called my friend. It rang longer than usual before they picked up. "Hey," they said, voice groggy. "Everything okay?" "No," I said. "A device from your house logged into my cloud account last night. It was named Camera 3. Silence. I could hear breathing on the other end, slow and measured. "That's impossible," they said finally. "I told you I don't have cameras. Then explain how a device from your address accessed my account." "I can't," they snapped, irritation creeping in, and I don't like being accused of something this serious. The shift in tone made my stomach drop. Defensive now. Not confused. Not concerned. "I'm not accusing," I said carefully. "I'm scared." They sighed. "Look, maybe your account was hacked. People do that. Spoof locations." I almost laughed and named the device Camera 3. Another pause. Longer, this time. "Can we talk about this later?" they said. "I'm running late." The call ended before I could respond. I spent the rest of the day spiraling. I contacted customer support, who confirmed the login had come from a device physically located at that address. They suggested I enable additional security features and monitor for further activity. They couldn't tell me what the device was or how many others existed. Camera 3. That night, I checked my social media. Someone had viewed my story, a blank account, no photo, no posts. Username KM3_backup. My hands went numb. I blocked it immediately. It reappeared seconds later under a different username. Then another. Each one viewed within seconds of being posted, like someone was waiting. I shut everything down and threw my phone across the couch, chest heaving. I drove back to my friend's house the next day without telling them. I don't know what I expected to do. Unfront them, search the place, scream. But I needed answers more than I needed sense. When I pulled into the driveway, my heart started pounding. There were movers inside. I sat in my car watching strangers carry boxes out of the house. Furniture, electronics, black storage bins. My friend stood on the porch directing them, calm and focused. Like this was planned. I got out of the car. "What's going on?" I demanded. They looked startled for a split second before smoothing their expression. "I'm moving!" "Since when?" "Since yesterday," they said. "I got a great offer on a place." My ears rang. "You didn't think to mention that?" They shrugged. "Everything's been weird lately." I figured some space would help. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Are there cameras in this house?" Their jaw tightened. "No." "Then why is someone moving out so fast?" They laughed sharply. "You're being dramatic." I pushed past them and into the house. Inside, the walls looked wrong. Pale squares marked where frames had been removed. Shelves were empty. In the guest bathroom, the mirror was gone entirely. In its place was a new one, already mounted, perfectly straight. I reached for it. My friend grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt. "Don't." We locked eyes. Up close, they looked exhausted. Not guilty, not innocent, just worn down. "You don't understand," they said quietly. "I didn't put them there." "Then who did?" They swallowed. "Someone who was here before me." My pulse thundered. "You said you'd never seen it." "I said it wasn't mine," they corrected. "Both can be true." I yanked my arm free. "To how many cameras?" They hesitated. "How many?" I repeated. "3," they admitted. My vision blurred. "And you never told me?" "I didn't know at first," they said quickly. "Then I did. And then I was too afraid to say anything." "Afraid of who?" They looked past me toward the hallway. "The person who checks them." My blood ran cold. "Checks them how?" "They come back," my friend whispered. "Sometimes when I'm asleep. Sometimes when I'm not home. They always know where everything is." I backed away slowly. "Why didn't you call the police?" They laughed without humor. "And say what? That someone installed cameras years ago and watches occasionally? There's never proof. They remove everything before anyone else sees it." The front door slammed shut behind me as a mover left. "Why me?" I asked. My friend's eyes filled with something like regret. Because you stayed in that room. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. You weren't supposed to come back? Then another. You move things when you're scared. I looked up. The new mirror in the bathroom was tilted slightly to the left. I don't remember leaving the house, only the feeling of my heart slamming against my ribs, as if it was trying to escape before the rest of me caught on. I was in my car suddenly, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. My phone buzzed again on the passenger seat. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. I drove until the streets blurred and the sky darkened. Until I parked somewhere unfamiliar and empty and just sat there, breathing like I'd run for miles. When I finally checked my phone, there were 6 unread messages, all from the same unknown number. You're very observant. You notice the mirror? That's why this is difficult. I don't like starting over. You make it messy. Please stop. I stared at the last one for a long time. Please stop. As if I was the one causing the problem. As if I'd walked into someone else's carefully maintained system and kicked it apart without realizing it existed. My hands were numb. My thoughts felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. I went straight to the police the next morning. I told them everything. The camera, the cloud login, the messages, the movers, my friend's admission. They listened, took notes, exchanged looks. They asked for proof. I showed them screenshots, logs, timestamps. They nodded, serious, professional. By the afternoon they called me back in. They had searched the house. There were no cameras. No adhesive marks, no holes, no wiring. The walls behind the mirrors were clean. Too clean. The devices I described didn't exist anymore. The cloud login had been routed through multiple servers. The location data was inconclusive. The messages came from disposable numbers already deactivated. They asked me gently if I'd been under stress lately, if I'd been sleeping well, if I had any history of anxiety. I walked out without arguing. I didn't have the energy. My friend didn't answer my calls after that. Their number went straight to voicemail. Their social media accounts vanished. When I drove past the house a week later, the place was empty. For sale sign out front, windows bare. Like no one had ever lived there. I tried to move on. I moved apartments. I changed my routines. I stopped staying over at people's houses. I covered mirrors at night. I avoided guest rooms. For a while, it worked. The messages stopped. The notifications didn't return. I started sleeping again. Then, 3 months later, I got an email from my cloud provider. New device added. My hands went cold. This time, the device name wasn't Camera 3. It was Guest Room. I logged in immediately, heart racing, half expecting to see live footage of myself panicking. Instead, there were files. Old ones, dated back years. Short clips, each only a few minutes long. Different locations, different houses, different bathrooms, different bedrooms. Same camera angle. Same mirror placement? Different people. I watched one. A woman brushing her hair, humming softly. She paused suddenly, frowning, eyes flicking toward the mirror like she sensed something. The clip ended. Another. A man stepping out of the shower, towel around his waist, stopping mid-step as if he'd heard something. The clip cut off. Another. My friend sitting on the bed, head in hands, whispering, "Please stop," over and over again. I understood then. This wasn't about me. Not really. I wasn't special. I was just the next variable. The next test. Someone had been planting cameras in guest rooms, watching how people behaved when they thought they were alone. Watching who noticed. Watching who didn't. Removing everything before anyone else could confirm it was real. And when someone noticed too much, when they disrupted the system, the observer moved on. I deleted the files, every single one. My hands shook as I did it, but I didn't hesitate. The confirmation message felt hollow. 2 days later, I got one last text. You weren't supposed to do that. I didn't reply. I changed my number. I closed the account entirely. I told no one what I'd found. Some things feel dangerous to share, like saying them out loud gives them weight. Time passed. Slowly, the tension in my shoulders eased. Life settled into something resembling normal again. Last week, a coworker invited me to stay over after a late night. I almost said no. Almost. I didn't want to live my whole life afraid of guest rooms and mirrors and shadows. I told myself it was over. I slept badly. In the morning, while brushing my teeth, I noticed the bathroom mirror wasn't quite straight. Just a little off. Enough to catch my attention. I didn't touch it. I packed my things quietly and left without saying goodbye. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. A new message. Thank you for understanding. I don't stay in other people's houses anymore. I don't trust mirrors that tilt too easily. And if you ever find yourself feeling watched in a place you don't live, don't assume it's paranoia. Sometimes it's a test. And sometimes noticing is the worst thing you can do.
Thanks for watching. If you liked our videos and want to see more of such content, subscribe to my channel and hit the like, share, and comment icon down below. These story plots are entirely original, and the entire process is reliant on one woman efficiency. To grow and support this community, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Thank you.